Hey, I'm Rob from HopZine, as you can tell. That's why you're on this channel, isn't it? After all. Anyway, this is the only beer, well, one of the few beer moments you'll get mentioned in this video. As you can see from the title, I'm doing one of those list things that people get nominated to do. So big thanks to Matt over at Massive Beer Reviews for nominating me to do this. I'm very comfortable about talking about myself. I'm not. It's a funny old situation, I guess. I mean, maybe it's that British mentality. Maybe it's my kind of my personal lack of self-worth. I don't know, but I mean, I feel I'm quite uncomfortable, I guess, talking about kind of stuff about myself. Am I that interesting? I don't think I'm that interesting. I mean, I'm a I'm a 41-year-old father of a small child. I mean, my life isn't always that exciting in a outside of my kind of bubble. It doesn't always seem that kind of exciting. I think that's fair to say. So I kind of really rack my brains for. I mean, what can I say? What doesn't make me seem like a complete fucking idiot? What's actually interesting? So here we go. Here we go. And I do have a beer, so that's broken the rules already. That's me, innit? Breaking the rules. I'm not. I wish I was. I wish I was more. Anyway, so this is a Sierra Nevada Narwhal, which I'm probably end up going to drink far quicker because I'm on this video, which is unfortunate. So, number one, I guess it's kind of obligatory to inform you of what I do outside of being on a YouTube video. So, for a living, I'm a graphic designer. I'd say print and exhibition designer. I work at a national museum. I've worked at two national museums, part of the same group. And they're the only two jobs I've ever had. I said I've been working for. I avoided work as long as possible. I went to college for a long time. I did out of school. I went to college for university for 8 years. That's someone who's avoiding real life as long as possible. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, before I kind of did this, I did art and design for 3 years. I did industrial design for 2 years. I did a degree in 3D design for 3 years, and then ultimately I got a job working at the what is now known as the National Science and Media Museum in Bradford, just front of house, working in the cinemas, working in the call centre, shit like that. And it just opportunity came up, and I got into that and became a graphic designer. I mean, I did focus on graphics, I guess, towards the end of my fucking phone. A new phone, Bixby, sucker, dude. Yeah, go away, Bixby, piece of shit. It's so annoying. Anyway, yeah, so I did focus on kind of graphics and packaging and stuff. I pissed around making lots of t-shirts with spray can art and stuff like that in my final year, and I made a black piece of packaging too. I was quite obsessed with t-shirts, to be honest, at this point, and streetwear. As you can tell, I'm a cool fucking dude. I'm not really, not now. I used to be in my younger years, but really into kind of like streetwear and stuff. So maybe that should have been one of my things. That'd have been more interesting. I used to be more interested. That would be one of my things. But so I was kind of like I was putting together a plan to open a shop and stuff like that, importing kind of t-shirts from Bathing Ape and stuff from Japan. And I mean, on the early days of kind of streetwear, that kind of skate culture, streetwear kind of stuff in the UK, I was trying to do that. So anyway, but then I ended up moving around a couple of museums, and I'm a print, so 2D. Adverts, brochures, posters, online shit. I design that also, but I also design exhibitions and displays. So that's what I do on a daily basis, on a semi-daily basis, I guess you'd say. So that's kind of what I do for a living. I'm sure that's massively the same for you. And the other one being, I guess one thing what kind of like it's weird. It's funny watching Joe, average Joe, on his channel talk about it. He admitted to it as well, and my admission is I'm a lifelong pro wrestling fan. It's something that started as a small child. My grandma was instrumental with. I mean, she was really into watching wrestling. It was back in the then. It was the world of sport on ITV on a Saturday lunchtime, and I mean, I loved it. I used to spend a lot of Saturdays with my grandma and watch a lot of kind of British wrestling, Big Daddy, Giant A-Stacks, Kendo Nagasaki, all that lot. So those kind of people. And I went to those events when I was probably 7, 8, 9, something like that. Went to those events live around kind of municipal halls of the north of England, Leeds, Wakefield, wherever. Mainly Leeds and Wakefield, I guess. Pontefract. Yeah, I even went. I think I was in the crowd on an event with giant air stacks and some fella called Scruffy Murphy. Fantastic name, clearly. Yes, Big Daddy and Greg Valentine. Not the Hammer Greg Valentine. Some British guy called Greg Valentine. So yeah, that was a recording for the World of Sport. So I remember I have such fond memories of that. Anyway, so I guess on from that, I then became I figured it out the other day, just through some Facebook group, that in 1987 I saw my first kind of American wrestling. That's back in the day. You used to call it American wrestling, which was WWF, and it was and once in a while on World of Sport they would put on a one of WWF's shows to kind of fill in their hour. And I remember the first match I ever saw was Strike Force versus the Hart Foundation for the Tag Team Championship. And that was the first time I ever saw American wrestling. From there, I got a couple of this is for the wrestling fucking geeks. Okay, so Joe, fucking you. And Lee, potentially, if you're watching. I've got some of the. I subscribed to, and my local shop used to get in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I got the first one was like their end of year kind of like list edition. First one I ever had. It had like a gold cover on it and stuff. It says, and that opened up a world. I mean, beyond kind of English and WWF, I didn't think there were anything. But then it kind of opened it up to everything that was out there. And so subsequently discovered all sorts of stuff. I mean, obviously NWA, WCW, but I got a couple of videos of. I could just talk about wrestling for half an hour. I got a couple of Pro Wrestling Illustrated videos, and they had like a lot of NWA, probably mainly NWA stuff on there. Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Four Horsemen, Nikita Koloff, Magnum TA, all that kind of era. So I kind of saw that kind of stuff, and I guess that kind of took me in that direction. And then I discovered WCW, which was on Tyne Tees in the UK. I mean, in the UK, it used to be a regionalised TV network. And I'm in Yorkshire, so we get Yorkshire Television on ITV, on Channel 3, that is, for American viewers. And so the next one on is kind of Newcastle, and that's Tyne Tees, it's Tyneside and stuff. But you could just get it, just get a smidge of the signal. I got my dad to get me a booster, a signal booster, to have in my bedroom. And I'd set my video to record it at like 2 a.m. You get this really hazy, shitty quality WCW. I remember I've got such a memories of watching Midnight Express and Tom Zink and Brian Pillman and Sid. I've got such a memory of watching Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, whatever you want to call him, on there in the really grainy, bad footage. So and then things go on, you grow up, you get into other things, and maybe I kind of drifted away from it. Probably in my kind of late teens, where obviously another thing, late teens, early 20s, probably drifted away from for a certain degree. I always kept interested, but I didn't watch it. I don't watch much nowadays. I definitely don't watch full shows of Raw and SmackDown. I watch highlights sometimes. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Post audio with John Pollock and Waiting. Their stuff's great. Cultaholic, What Culture, that kind of stuff. That's how I keep up to date with kind of mainstream kind of wrestling. But I do watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, as I was kind of drifted away from MMA, Smash Arts. Drifted away from that. I was a big fan of that. I've drifted away from that. I don't think it's got the characters anymore. And kind of New Japan brings in together those two parties of the kind of realism of combat with MMA and the kind of pageantry and stuff of pro wrestling. Obviously, the kind of the elite, Kenny Omega and all that kind of crew, it's instrumental with me getting interested in New Japan. I knew about Japanese pro wrestling back in the day. I was always like a big fan. I loved Muta, great Muta. So yeah, I'm a big New Japan fan. But yeah, from being probably 6, 7 years old, putting on that kind of like Matt Rollerball Rocco armbar on my brother. I put my dad in a figure four leg lock when I was about 9 or something, and I really hurt his leg. I didn't think it was meant to hurt. I thought this was a work. I thought this shit was fake, but I hurt him putting him in a figure four. But yeah, interestingly, first time I went to WWE live, I've seen him a bunch of times when I was probably about 11, 12. Some of their earlier tours to the UK, and I touched Haku on the back, and Haku, and who else? Didn't it? Coco Beware? I think it might be. Touch him on the back. But I did say Andre the Giant. He kind of came out. It was a weird setup. There were kind of bleachers, and there were a gap, and then the door came through the door, and we kind of stood in between, and then Andre appeared, kind of towering above us all. So yeah, I have seen Andre the Giant live. Never seen Hulk Hogan live, but saw everyone else back in the day. Macho Man, Bret Hart, $1 Million Man, Roddy Piper, Earthquake, Jake the Snake. He was always my favourite. Was Jake. But yeah, never saw Ultimate Warrior, never saw Hulk Hogan, even though they would fucking advertise for that shit. Anyway, so I can kind of keep track on it on YouTube and podcasts and stuff now, but I'm not an avid fan. I do like New Japan when I find the time to have the time for myself, to kind of watch that kind of shit. So that's number one. Number two being this is everybody else says something personal, and it's quite hard to not kind of like, especially if you've got fuck all going on in your life, and you're not allowed to talk about beer. What are you going to say? I mean, for doing this kind of thing, this is really out of character for me. I'm a really shy person. I'm quite happy in my kind of like close circle of friends and quite outgoing in that situation. But in a traditional sense, I find it quite odd that someone who's got a YouTube channel has got who's quite shy and quite socially awkward, and look at I'm really awkward saying that. It's fucking weirdo. So yeah, I'm quite a shy person, really. So I guess that doing this is fucking even worse than just recording you prattling on about beer for 5 minutes. So it's very, and when I started blogging about beer blogging. I wasn't. I didn't do great at school, so my writing was never that good. So kind of founding a written blog about beer, a written blog about anything, and being asked to write things by kind of like festivals and breweries and stuff like that, which is really mental. So one thing I have learned on this kind of point, especially meeting a bunch of my fellow UK-based YouTubers, and I think we all have a very similar situation, all quite shy people. But then oddly, I guess we're trying to fucking jump out in a way. And I guess this how it manifests. It's like you've got control, haven't you, in that sense. Being in this situation, you can control your situation. So yeah, I find it's quite reassuring in a lot of ways. All my friends like Craig and Jake, and maybe not Harry, Peter definitely, and Stuart have quite explicitly talked about that kind of thing. But it was a way of kind of coping with that kind of shyness and stuff. So that's weird. That's funny that I do this. And I'm sure people who know me from work, I'm quite reserved at work, could come across as aloof or rude or miserable. Sometimes might be all of those as well. But just because I'm quite shy, they'd be quite surprised that this shit goes on. I'm talking on camera to tens of people. Anyway, sip of beer for the working man, because I do work in on Sunday. Not now, finished earlier. Next one being, which might be quite a surprise. I was, and I guess in the same way, I always will be. I was probably in my late teens to mid 20s. I was full on punk, Mohican, the job lot. Early Doors, Sex Pistols, Damned, all the kind of like Stiff Little Fingers, Buzzcocks, all the kind of 77 punk bands. Then it's really weird. It kind of reflects my kind of obsession with kind of pro wrestling and stuff. That kind of, then you find the American stuff, and I got really into like skate punk and stuff like that. No Effects, Pennywise, all that, those kind of bands. And then pop punk, and then from there, kind of more kind of post hardcore and stuff like that. So I was a very active kind of like member of that kind of scene, especially in West Yorkshire and broader, I guess. I kind of get around, but mainly as much because I'm friends with guys in a popular local band. So that, I mean, yeah, I don't have any photographs though, me with Mohican, which is I'm sure people would find massively entertaining. He's very young, slim Rob with a Mohican, but yeah, so, but I mean, as far as music goes, I'll still listen to some of that. Some of it is absolute dog shit. But then again, it's about kind of it's about youth and rebellion and finding out who you are and stuff. And that's what music's all about. So I bet that would be quite surprising. As I currently dress in the craft beer uniform of kind of plaid shirts or check shirts, and this is what you drink. This is what you drink this stuff. This is what you dress like. I ain't got a beard because I can't. I ain't got the patience to grow a beard. I don't think I've got the coverage. It's grey now. so that what else have we got left over? What was I going to say? So done job, wrestling, punk rock. What was the other thing I was going to talk about? Oh yeah, true crime. I'm sure I'm not alone. Same with Joe. Joe, if you watch this, I would definitely have talked about comedy because yeah, I'm a big kind of like comedy nerd, especially when I was a bit younger, fan of Bill Hicks and that kind of ilk of kind of slightly edgy but good comedians, George Carlin, all those kind of like guys. Big fan of like Seinfeld and I always watch a lot of comedy. I mean, I think you've got to, aren't you? Fucking life is rough and shit is going down, so you may as well. But you mean, so that would be something I would have talked about. But watch Joe; he does a much better job, and he's much more articulate and entertaining than me. So one thing I want to talk about is true crime, whether it's kind of like dramatized stuff, but kind of documentary based stuff, I guess. Not kind of fucking fake shit. I don't want to watch Midsummer Murders, all that kind of bobbins. I like the real shit. I like it gruesome, I like it horrible. So you mean it is alarming the amount of hours I've spent watching kind of interviews from the like 80s with Jeffrey Dahmer and the kind of watching the full trial of Dennis Rader, BTK killer. If you've not heard it, there's a podcast in the UK called All Killer No Filler. It's two comedians who do a great podcast about kind of true crime. They always pick someone every month. I do it monthly, something like that, maybe a couple of months. But yeah, I've always been kind of fascinated with that kind of thing. I mean, I've watched a lot of hours of interviews. I'm quite some great footage out of there. Richard Ramirez and Son of Sam, what's it called? Paul Berkovitz, something like that. And just how obviously Ted Bundy is a fascinating character. That I quite liked that series on Netflix. I know a lot of people had a lot of issues with it, but it's like he was sympathetic. I don't know. I think there's a lot to that. Bundy is he portrays himself as a sympathetic character a lot of time. There's a lot and supposedly charming and all this kind of like bullshit, but he's a fucking animal. It's fascinating. It's disturbing. It keeps. I've got a tendency to. Well, I'm a graphic designer. I'm an artist in a certain way, in a certain shape and form. So I've got quite an active imagination. So shit like that doesn't play well with this fertile mind, unfortunately. Yeah. So I've spent hours and hours, and I find it fascinating and digging deeper and finding all this fucking weird little shit. That little drawing Jeffrey Dahmer had produced of his kind of crazy altar is just, finding shit like that and finding Dennis Rader's kind of selfies of him. That's fucking weird. Thingy as well, the Miranda tapes and stuff. I forgot what they're called. And there's an extension of that. Have you heard of McCamey Manor? As it turns out, I've got a very similar haircut to Russ McCamey, but I find that fascinating. Go on YouTube, disappear down that wormhole of what McCamey Manor is, what it is, and what it could be. I don't know. It's fascinating. It's fucked up. Is it something bad going on there, or is it just a big charade? Is Russ just a great showman? I don't know. I think there's all of the above going on there. That's fascinating. So I like those kind of, like, I guess I like to question things. I guess that might be a thing that I kind of find fascinating about kind of like true crime. So that's 4. The 5th one would be I am fluent in Italian. So anyway, thanks for joining me for this. I'm Rob from HopZine. And next time, I won't be talking about me. I'll be talking about some beer. Thanks for watching this. Cheers. And oh yeah, I'm not going to nominate anyone else because everyone else has been nominated. So there you go. Actually, no, I'm going to nominate Mark Starr of the Hoppery. I'm going to my phone's ringing. Sorry about that. I've got a dramatic phone ring. Mark Starr of the Hoppery. Who else is never going to do this? Better Beer Authority. And who else doesn't do beer? Lee Russell doesn't do beer stuff anymore, but he's interesting. Who else does it do? Beer Channel and Chad from Chad's Beer Reviews. Because none of those people are going to watch this. None of those people are going to do a video. And then the circle